What is up, dudes? Here is Angry Grandpa. Welcome back, dudes. Today we're gonna talk about the best medium at tier 5 or MBT, if you want to call it like this, mobile battle tank in the game 2020. Now, I've made a video yesterday before I published this one, but it was like 46 minutes long, speaking about specs, pros and cons, and so on. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do a bit of a trimming, like pick the tanks that I think are the best and then remove the rest. Some of them just like the same gun or the same ammo, or very similar in construction, or very I don't know, not so impressive by stats. We have the MX40, we have the Chieftain Mk10, we have the Leopard 185, we have the M60A3 pattern, the M6B Batash, Merkava Mk1, the Starship M60A2, T64 Model 1976, T72 Victory, the T72 AV Arctic with Arctic skin, T80 Arctic, and Type 85 IM. These are the tanks that are non-premium. The rest of them that are premium, it's very, it's gonna take you a long time to make a comparison between all of them. But I'm not gonna do the comparison like add to compare. I'm just gonna speak about my experience with the tanks and so on. And with some of them I'm gonna talk about the gun or not. So let's go ahead with the MX40. When you're gonna unlock MX40 from the Francine de la Roche tech tree, which is here, you're gonna bump into a tank that it's very similar to MX40 DCA and IMX Brennus, but keep in mind this tank doesn't have the best armor. These are light tanks, not MBTs, basically light tanks, very thin armor, decent gun, decent machine gun, because you can shoot also with this one, but I mean this one here on the turret, but it's not the best one. Mobility is fairly fine, visibility also is fine, damage output is fairly fine, but it's not on one of the good tanks, so I'm gonna set it as a reserve. Chieftain Mk10. Chieftain Mk10 is slow. It's a slow tank, good armor, very good gun depression if you wanna play on the hills and do some sniping and so on. Very good mobility, however, poor ammo. The ammo is not the best one. You have 380 penetration, with AP rounds, and with hash rounds you have 265. So with this tank, don't expect to come into a circle and to capture the base within 20 seconds when you're very far away. This tank has to be somewhere between first line and second line, not one of the best tanks in the game. So as a reserve. The Leopard 185, it's a very good mobile tank. It has some pros and cons, like not the best armor, good gun, good ammunition, I can say, fairly destructive. You can play in both modes, aggressive and stealth, or sniping and whatever. But when it comes to armor, it doesn't have enough armor, and you can get pretty fast the ammo, the tracks with engine, the engine totally high criticals, like getting your gun sometimes, because you have some weak spots, around the cheeks, upper plate, sideways, and so on. So again, not one of the best tier 5 in the game. The next one is the M60A3 pattern, or the M60 pattern. This tank, when it's being upgraded, here you're gonna get these plates all over the place. it improves the tank slightly a bit. It makes more sense why some plates are in some areas, because in some areas the tank, well, can be penetrated, and some ammo can penetrate the tank's armor, and that's why you have plates on the upper one, sideways chicks, sideways down here, because it's a very huge gap, and that's why they put this plate here, and here also. So that's why they put the plates here, but still you're gonna have like a very small area where it can get penetrated. However, the gun, it's fairly fine. The APFDS, it's fine, and you have a machine gun. Mobility wise and view range, it's very decent as a medium, very mobile, which is important. You have gun depression, which is important, so I'm gonna keep this one. The next one is the M6B, which is a better version of the M60 pattern. This is an Israeli tank. You can find him in the first tech tree right here, and I really enjoy to play with this tank a lot. But the only problem, despite having like a very decent and the same gun as M60 pattern, is that this area, the neck area of the tank, the ring where it connects the chassis to the turret, is very easily penetrated, and you're gonna get your turret jammed most of the time. So if you keep your gun like this up non-stop and don't keep it down to protect your tank, you're gonna end up being penetrated a lot. When you're gonna upgrade this tank with Armor Plus Applique, provides you much more armor and protection. Mobility wise and so on is the same as M60. Nothing changed, just the turret and some designs and some angles. So I'm gonna keep this one. The next one is the Merkava Mk1. It's an autoloader medium tank, or more MBT. The only downside with this tank it is that it doesn't have a good gun, and that's why I keep just Heat, because Heat to me is the best gun for this tank. The APSDS doesn't help, and mostly of the time you don't penetrate with those, even though it's the same gun as the Magash MX60. This tank, with having Heat, it can make him like powerful, and you can diminish a tank by yourself without anyone's help. Keep in mind, you need to have penetration after penetration with high value or high damage over 400, because Heat goes over 400 damage. It's in the same movement and mobility like the Magash and M60, only that you are half of it you are barbecue and half of it you are grill. What I mean by that is, it is because in the front you have the engine, you have the crew, and then you have the ammo, which is being stocked either here or in the upper side. So it's a bit of a challenge when you face some enemies. Don't try to get them sideways or behind you, otherwise you're dead. I enjoyed play with this tank in the past, but by my experience and so on, having a huge lower plate exposed, easily penetrated through tracks for first track in this area, it's not a best tier 5, set as a reserve. The next one is M60A3 Starship, or the Starship. This tank is similar to one of those tanks, American tanks at tier 10 in other games. It has a huge howitzer gun, which it helps you a lot to grind, and also is very fun to play with this tank, because it's important to have fun in a game that you play. Otherwise it's boring and you get rid of it. This tank has good mobility, good view range, fairly good armor. Like, you cannot survive some shells, you know, but it's like on the same level as Magash 6B when it comes to armor. But when it comes to the gun, it's
nice.
On hit, 400 penetration with 720 damage. You have ATGMs, which is the, I think is the only one non-premium that has ATGMs, and that has 430 penetration with 760 damage, high explosive with 51 penetration and 975 damage. You can win by yourself of a fight. You don't need someone else. You just need this tank and play wise. Gun elevation, gun depression is fairly fine. Mobility is the same like the other two, Magash and Patton. It's very decent, and as I said, it looks similar to some other tanks from other games. T64 Model 1976, T72 Victory, T72AV Arctic, and T80 Arctic. These tanks, all of them are similar. Slightly a bit perhaps the last one and the first one, but they're very similar. The gun is very similar, the chassis is very similar, mobility is similar, view range just in some of them which are taller like T72AV and T80. They have a better view range, probably better camo, probably better munition and so on. Not the best tanks, however you can play aggressive with these, and keep in mind, yeah, you can have a lot of fun with these, but the gun it's fairly the same. Like you have APSTS on each tank, you have high explosive anti-tank fin stabilized, which is hit FS, and high explosive fin stabilized, which is HEF. So you can use all of these or just two of them or one of them or whatever, but with every tank you can play aggressive, you can be first line, you can try to get all the kills, but in the end you're gonna get your ammo and engine and sideways and turret jammed pretty freaking a lot, especially with the T64 Model 1976, the T72 Victory and T80. With T72 AV it's not the same. It's not the same. You have the APSDS and you have also the hit FS, which I'm using, like you see. Yeah, so I'm gonna remove these. Reserve. I want to talk about T72. Why T72? Because T72 AV, it's a very slightly improved tank that has on the upgrade menu Contact 1 era, which it makes the tank much more sturdier and stable and very hard to penetrate. You can play aggressive. It's let's say it, you can, as you see the position of the turret on the chassis, it's slightly in the middle, which gives you the possibility to aim and shoot a target while on the move on high speed or not, and that's a plus. The lower plate, it's fairly exposed, and the moment you move back and forth, you're gonna end up, you know, not getting penetrated and getting a bounce. And it's very, you know, stable as a tank. Now we're gonna go to the Type 85 IIM or the Type 85. This tank is like a small Abrams with a different turret and a different chassis. It is fairly mobile, has a fairly good gun, you know, but the only downside it is that you don't have gun depression. If you don't, looks like you don't have, it's just up to here, I think, or up to here where and goes my mouse. Ain't gonna go all the way down to the chassis, but the tank, it's fairly decent, fairly mobile, good view range, fairly good camouflage, and you get pretty much, I think, every time you're gonna get the engine or some of it injured on your tank. upper plate, lower plate. It is a meaning why it has tracks in front of the tank on the lower plate. It get easily bounced. It can be easily penetrated also in this area where is this bar, and it's not the best as a tier 5. Now we have 4 tanks, and guess which one of them it is the best and which one of them. M60A3, in my opinion, it is the best tier 5 mean battle tank, the mean machine, the main tank in the game, non-premium. Why? Because you have a hell of a good gun, decent gun depression, you have enough health points, you have enough mobility, you have enough utility. Even though if you want to have more view range, you can put retrofits, it's not expensive. And in this game you make a hell of a lot of money. So if you play, you're gonna make the money and you're gonna invest. Sustained damage, as I said, 400mm penetration, 720 damage. And it does 3757 as a minimum damage per minute. And reloading time is 11.5 seconds. As I said, you can add some retrofits. So even though you have a powerful gun, get to know your tanks. Get your tanks in the test drive, in the polygon, and practice shooting, practice damage, practice weak spots, practice everything. After this hit, I'm gonna try to use a high explosive. So as you may see, the damage goes over 720, which is specified here, and it gives you a bonus of 25 damage plus a fire bonus of 300. This is a high explosive round. Now it's freaking amazing. You get to do 1k damage in one shot. Like, high explosive is the version of saving money. If you don't want to use heat and TGMs, go ahead and use the high explosive. The high explosive, it says that it goes up to 975, but you don't have that bonus as the heat ammo. So it's fairly decent, you know, as using. So we have this M60 870 damage. Let's go on top of this hill, trying to blow up that object for 30. Let's have a look. 922. So it turned out to be a very good round. Let's try to see on this T64 model 976. 920. So the damage, as you may see up, it goes in between 870, 920, 922. And in my opinion, it is the best one at tier 5 if you wanna have fun. The best tier 5 MBT. With this being said, dudes, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. As I said, it used to be a longer one, but I decided to redo it again because it was too long. See you next time. Peace out.